Hi, and welcome to the New England Hemophilia Association's Webinar Wednesday series. My name is Sarah Shinkman. I am NEHA's Program Director, and I will be the moderator for tonight's webinar. I am thrilled to be joining you all tonight. I've been with NEHA for the last month or so, and this is the first time I have an opportunity to moderate the webinar, so I'm really excited for this one. As we navigate the current health crisis together, our primary concern is the health and wellness of the individuals and families we serve. Being connected with each other is more important than ever. While we may be practicing physical distancing, staying healthy means not falling into an unhealthy pattern of social isolation. Our goal is to keep you as informed as possible. That's why we launched this series. For the foreseeable future, NEHA will be hosting an educational forum at 7 p.m. each week, and we're calling it Webinar Wednesday. Tonight's webinar is all about how to find the silver lining when we face major challenges in life, something I'm sure many of us can relate to now. Our speaker will offer perspective from his own experience, as well as tools to help you stay positive and present with what we can control today. We are thrilled to welcome Jim Stroker as our presenter for tonight's webinar. Tell you a little bit more about Jim. Jim has over 30 years of experience as a sports coach and as a wellness educator with a New Jersey public school system. Jim has delivered motivational and educational keynote seminars that resonate with audiences ranging from Fortune 500 companies to thousands of high school students throughout the country, as well as NEHA families at the Couples Retreat for 3 years. Jim's daughter, Allie Stroker, is the first actress who uses a wheelchair for mobility to appear on a Broadway stage and to be nominated and win a Tony Award. She won the 2019 Tony Award for Best Featured Actress in a Musical for her performance in Oklahoma. Before we get started, we'd like to go over a few housekeeping points and helpful hints for the webinar. We expect that tonight's webinar will last approximately 1 hour. And at the end, I'll go ahead and pass questions along to Jim.
Okay, so Sarah and Rich, I want to thank both of you, first of all, for offering me this opportunity to speak to many of my former friends. I'm trying to see you out there that I've met before. Seems like too long, and there always is silver linings. There always is an opportunity hidden behind these challenges. And here we go. You know, I probably may never have reconnected with you. And I'm just so flattered and grateful for this opportunity. And I hope that in this next 50 minutes that I can offer you some strategies, some tools, and maybe a perspective that might help you navigate through just uncharted waters. I mean, we obviously, most of us have never dreamed that anything like this could happen so suddenly. All of us have been stricken with tremendous fear and anxiety during this. And many people right now are at the bottom rung of Maslow's needs, working hard to simply survive both physically and financially. So if you're at that rung, what I'm going to say may not resonate as well, because again, our number one priority is to make sure you and your family, your loved ones, stay safe. And all of us have been given a pretty clean guidelines to shelter in place, social distancing, hand washing. Here in New Jersey, it's all masks and gloves. And our number one priority right now is simply that of survival. There's another part of this that I like to talk about. And quite frankly, I've talked about this for the last 30 years. You've been through things like this before. Not exactly like this, not the same thing, but you've been down these paths before. You've had challenges, setbacks, events occur in your life that you never ever planned and you never thought could possibly happen. And you've navigated your way through those with strength, courage, and optimism. And you recognize, as this COVID-19 pandemic surrounds us, you have, I think, you can kind of smell, you've been here before. And to be able to go back into your highlight reel of your life and hone those tools that you have used in the past is crucial. Now, every one of my presentations for the last 20 years, pre COVID-19 virus, have started off like this, with this slide. So almost as if you've done the preparation, you've been here before. And that slide has always been E plus R equal O. The events in your life, some you plan to get on this webinar tonight, to wake up tomorrow morning and serve breakfast to your family, to make sure that you clean and stay safe and that you do the things you know you have to do. Some events, as we know, just like this one, are totally unplanned. So some we're in control of, some we're not. COVID-19 virus, unplanned. But it is an event that almost in a bizarre fashion is striking every individual on this planet. No one gets easy pass. Everyone's dealing with it. Now comes the R, the most critical part of every challenge you face, and that is your response. So let me backtrack. The events, many out of our control. The R is totally your choice. And that will equal the outcome of how, when you walk away, when the finish line occurs, the outcome, when the day comes, and it will, this too shall pass. There will be a day when we're back to a new normalcy. And when that happens, how will you have become a better person? What treasures will you bring with you that you have learned, that you have found out about yourself, that has made you a different person? And that outcome is built on your response, that R. During this time when we have a little bit more time than we normally have had, I recommend a lot of books. One that has had a big impact on me is called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And Viktor Frankl was in Auschwitz for 3 years in the worst possible situation that anyone could dream of. His wife, mom and dad, and 3 children were killed, and Frankl was there and worked in service for 3 years. Viktor Frankl has a quote that relates back to our E plus R equal O. He says, between stimulus and response, between the event and your response, there is a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. He says to everything that happens, if you are mindful enough to pause, if you can gather yourself and become calm, you can choose the way you respond to what's happening to you. I know you've done that. The people that I'm talking to now, have had challenges, have had difficult obstacles to endure. And during all of those, even though you felt like there are things out of your control, no one has controlled your attitude, your perception, your creativity, your resourcefulness, your determination, your grit, your love. You choose these things every single day, and you know it. And if you yourself have practiced, I was a basketball coach, football coach, and baseball coach for 36 years. The most important part of the season were the practices, the practices, the practices for the games. And if you practiced hard, if you practice diligently, if you practice with effort and meticulous detail, the games seemed easy. So if you every day are practicing an attitude of positivity and gratitude, if you practice every day your mindfulness meditation work, your work on giving to others and serving, then this is just another game. A difficult game it is, but you know that you will flourish in this situation. This is some of the things that I do. And I offer you this, and you might say, Jim, 4 of these I love. But every single day since October 30th, 1989, I usually wake up and follow a very similar routine, almost the same routine, because I was a coach and I would tell every basketball player, when you go to the foul line, follow a routine. When you step into the batter's box, follow a routine. Before a big game, follow a routine. This allows you to alleviate mindless thinking. This allows you to be in control of what you're doing prior to the game, so that when the game comes, you feel like you're in control. So every morning I wake up and repeat the following simple thing to myself. It's called self-talk. It comes from the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. This is going to be a great day. I not only say it on sunny days, I say it on cloudy days. I not only say it when I feel great, I say it when I don't feel great. I said it before the COVID-19 virus hit, and now during the COVID-19 virus hit, I say the same thing. I set myself up with self-talk that's positive. I do have an option. I can lay there in bed, have fear scurrying through my head, and start repeating words like, I'm not sure I can make it. This obstacle's too big for me. I'm not sure I have the strength to carry on. Instead, I set myself up with that simple statement. Following that, I go through 3 things that I'm grateful for every day. And once I mention what they are, I ask myself, how do they make me feel? I'm grateful for the connections of the people that I love that I've been able to keep in touch with by way of Zoom, FaceTime, and text messaging. And that makes me feel love and connection. I'm grateful for this extra time to be able to clean my house like I've never cleaned it before. And that makes me feel organized and in control. I'm grateful for the time to sit and take the words out of my head and place them on a piece of paper to start my book. Every day, 3 different things that I'm grateful for. Then I move to number 3. What are 3 things that went well yesterday. 3 things that went well, and how do they make me feel? I do this so I can make sure I'm practicing the muscle of optimism. And then finally, before I go to my story, I take 3 deep breaths. And every one of those breaths start from my diaphragm, travel up through my lungs, right up to my third eye, and right back down to my diaphragm. 3 good breaths to realize, Jim, you're alive. Nothing else matters. You've been given this day, 84,600 seconds of life. You have been given that today. And then I tell this story to myself. And I'd like to recall it for you. The story took place back on February 22nd, 1980, up in Lake Placid, New York. The United States Olympic hockey team, and you see them behind there, right there, the ages of 20 years, 8 months, were getting themselves ready to play the Soviet national hockey team. The Soviets had won the Olympic gold medal in 1976, 1972, 1968, and 1962. 4 straight Olympic seasons they had won. They were made up of a group of professional hockey players that practiced 9 hours a day and were paid handsomely to make sure that they took home the gold medal every single Olympic season. These young kids sat there getting ready for the massacre. If the truth be known, they had scrimmaged the Soviet team 4 weeks before, and they stopped the scrimmage in the 3rd period because the score was 15-2. They had a big challenge, and you see their mindsets right there. They're waiting to get beat. Their perspective is not positive. And Herb Brooks walked in to that locker room and said the following. He said, "Boys, you have tonight a great opportunity." He said, "Boys, if you played them 10 times, they might beat you 9, but not tonight." Herb Brooks was saying, forget about the past. Forget about the future. Just worry about today. Worry about the present moment. He told the boys, "I'm sick and tired of hearing how great the Soviet national team is. Tonight, you are the greatest hockey team in the world. Tonight, you will skate with them, stay with them, and shut them down because you can. Boys, you were meant to be hockey players. You were born to be here tonight." And then he said it, "This is your time." What he was saying to these boys is there was something bigger going on here. He told the boys that they were meant to be in this challenge, that they had their chance now to become the best they could be tonight. Those guys went out and won that game. But I use that as a little motivational speech to myself because I say, Jim, you were meant to be wherever you are. And I say this to the community I'm speaking to. Wherever you are, whatever challenge you're in, just assume you are meant to be here. You were born to be the leader that you are. You were born to become the hero of your own life. And heroes shine the brightest when obstacles take place. I'm here to ask you really 3 questions. During this challenging time, during the past, I'll say 6 to 7 weeks, and maybe this is going to run out another month, another 5 months, another year or two. But I ask you these questions, and I want you to think about them every day. Number one, am I focusing in on what I'm missing in life or what I have? Let me repeat it. Is my focus every day on what I'm missing or what I have right in front of me? Number two, am I focusing in on the things that are out of my control or the things that are in my control? And then number three, am I allowing my mind to jump to the past and future, or am I trying to stay present and mindful? Look, none of us are perfect. All of us have flaws. No one has this down perfectly. But just to become aware of what you're focusing in on daily, the number one question there is a big one. The number one slide has to do with the power source that you have. It's called gratitude. Gratitude is focusing in on what you do have, not what you don't. There's a lot of different emotions. In fact, close to almost 5,000. But all those emotions blend in to only four. They're called the primary emotions, the primary feelings. And those primary feelings are scared, mad, sad, and glad. A synonym for glad is grateful. Scared, I'm afraid something may happen in the next minute or next year that's going to bring about pain to myself or the people that I love. I am scared. Mad, I have been unjustly treated by someone or the universe and feel terrible about not being treated fairly and with dignity and grace. Sad, I feel like I'm losing something, I've lost something, or feel like something in the future I'm going to lose. These are all normal emotions that we feel every day. You feel scared for a reason, to keep you safe. If you feel scared, that means that your amygdala portion of your brain is working well. It's normal. If you feel mad at times, that's normal. If you feel sad at times, very, very normal. However, when these emotions turn into more than just emotions, when they string out to moods or all day feelings, we need to go back to the one at the top, gratitude. It's impossible truly to be mad and sad and be grateful at the same time. It's impossible to be truly scared and be grateful for what you have. Every single day, you have a choice to make a conscious effort to have you and your family continue to write down, talk about, and feel what gratitude, feel those things that you have every day. There's a lot of them, and it's a power source. Optimism is a key source to sustainability. It allows you to endure. Optimism is a learned skill. Martin Seligman did great research at the University of Pennsylvania, taking people who had felt helpless or hopeless, taking people whose life satisfaction was low, And Seligman put them through a research project and said, all I want you to do is at the end of the day, write down 3 things that happened today, that happened well, 3 things that happened in the day that were good, and write down how they made you feel. 3 good things. He did this for 30 days. And then tremendous changes occurred with people. Optimism is finding what's good in life. Optimism is having an eye to find all the things that are right in front of you, right around you, that you may miss if you're lost in fear, sadness, or anger. So I would suggest, if there's anything you take away from this, if you were to say, Jim, I will commit to this every day. And if you can develop the muscles of gratitude and optimism, if you can stay focused on what you do have, not what you don't, I believe this will help you sustain during any challenge you face, whether it's the coronavirus, cancer, car accidents, deaths, or any challenge that you're facing. These are antidotes and medicine that can help. The second question I posed up there was, are you focusing in on what's in your control or what's out of your control? Number 2, most important thing you can do, create a sheet, a ledger sheet. Put a line down the middle. Put a line at the top. On one side, what can I do during this lockdown quarantine period? What can't I do? Another sheet, what's in my control? What's out of my control? And then I'd like you to take all the things that you can't do and just put a big X over them because you can't do them. And then I'd put all the things that are out of your control and I'd put a big X over them. And I would keep my focus every day on all the things you can do. If I paid you a measly $10 to list as many things that you can do using your creativity, resourcefulness, your out of the box thinking of all the things you can do, you'd become a millionaire. So focus in on that. You remember the serenity prayer. It's been used so much powerfully during challenging times. And you remember it. God, grant me the wisdom to accept the things I cannot control and the courage to change the things I can control and the wisdom to know the difference. It was way back in 1938. And there was a sergeant in the Hungarian army. His name was Karoly Takis. Karoly happened to be the world's greatest pistol shooter, and he was scheduled to win the 1940 Olympics. He had spent 30 years perfecting this skill. One early October morning, Karoly was on his horse, showing his men the art of throwing a grenade. And he lifted the grenade up, and this faulty grenade went off in his right hand. Karoly was rushed to a nearby hospital and lost half of his right hand. He laid there for 27 days, and every day he looked at his right hand. And one day, on the 28th day, he looked over and saw his left hand. 2 days later, Karoly Takis checked out of that hospital, and no one could find him for 2 months. No one. 2 months later, the Hungarians had scheduled their national pistol shooting championship to reign their new champ. And they were there in that competition when all of a sudden Karoli Takis walked through the door. All the men there looked at Karoli and hugged him and thanked him for coming to root them on and asked where he had been. But Karoli just smiled. After the last shooter went, the judge called out the name, Karoli Takis. And everyone looked around and said, no, Karoli's injured. He can't shoot. Karoli strolled up to the line and picked up that pistol in his left hand and shot his way to the Hungarian championships. In 1940 and 1944, the Olympics were canceled because of World War II, but Karoli Takis would win a gold medal in 1948 and 52 for Hungary. Gratitude is focusing in on what you do have, not what you don't. All anxiety is built on wanting things you don't have. Question number three. Question number three asks, are you focusing in on the present, the past, or the future? You woke up today. You've been given this day right now. The most important thing you can develop during this extra time you have is some mindfulness practice, some practice that you use where you go into a stillness environment. That doesn't have to be sitting in a room meditating. You can do that when you're cooking. You can do that when you're gardening. You can do that on a walk in the woods, but you must go still. You must start to feel and start to become aware of the thoughts that are in your head. You must learn to use your breath as an anchor and understand anytime you want, when you get good at this, when thoughts come up that aren't serving you, that you have a tool, and that's called mindfulness, to use your breathing to come back to the present moment. I was a coach for a long time. The key to every game we played was to play the play you were playing. Stop worrying about the play that just happened. Stop looking at the scoreboard and thinking what'll happen if you don't score. Bill Belichick walks up and down the sideline and says one thing to his players: do your job right now. Next play. Using your breath as an anchor is the key. Catching yourself when you start to float away, when you start to bring about anxiety of the future. And the more you practice it, the better you get. I'm not trying to do anything great in the future. All I want to do is one thing, and I have listed down there 1%. And this is stolen from, again, James Clear, Atomic Habits. I offer this to you during this Corona breakdown period, during this module that's different than ever, and then during your entire life. Just get 1% better every day. 1%. Clean out your basement and become 1% better. Call someone you've never talked to in the last 20 years and then write down, I got 1% better. Go out and walk 1.5 miles instead of 1 mile. Start painting. Just take the time to write down in your journal how you felt today. Just get 1% better, because here's the reality. If you get 1% better every day for a year, you become 37% better at the end of the year. It's called the aggregation of marginal gains. It doesn't put a lot of pressure on you except to do one thing. Continue your streak day after day and be consistent with your daily gains. I love this little story. It's a story that took place in Washington, D.C. in 2007. And the Washington Post decided to do a little research project, and they would win the Pulitzer Prize for this. They decided to put a street musician in the busiest subway station in Washington, D.C. on January 17th, 2007 at 9 a.m. in the morning. And they would videotape it for 43 minutes. That was the research project. Put a street musician in the middle of the subway station. Sit there and record it for 43 minutes and see what would happen. Well, over 2,300 people walked past that street musician. And in 43 minutes, $36.10 would be put in that musician's case. Of all the people that walked past, 11 people stopped to listen to the street musician. That was the statistics, period. 11 people, $36 in 43 minutes. Well, they stopped the recording, and then some interesting information came out. The street musician happened to be none other than Joshua Bell. He's considered the finest violinist in the world. And he was playing a $3.5 million Stradivarius violin. 2 weeks later, he would play at the White House. 1 month before, tickets to see him perform went for $800 each. He was right there. People were rushing from one thing to the next. All they had to do was slow down, take a breath, and notice what was right under their eyes. The greatest thing about the coronavirus is it brings about the fear of death. The Greeks called it memento mori, just realizing every day could be your last day, and to live each day as if it's your last, and to recognize that all the little things in life are truly the most important things. Don't go through another day without breathing, becoming more mindful, and appreciating the little things. Before we leave the 3 questions, number 1, are you focused in on what you're missing or what you have? Number 2, are you focused in on what you can control, not what you can't? And number 3, are you staying present in exactly where you are and all the gifts that are right under your nose? This is a cow, you know that, and there's a buffalo. It's an odd situation out in Colorado. And Colorado is kind of bizarre. On the west portion of the state are the Rockies, and that's where the buffalo hang out. And on the east portion of the state, it's kind of a blend. It's kind of a blend over of the Kansas plains, and it's a very different environment. And that's where cows are. So you have cows and buffaloes, very odd gathering. And in Colorado, these giant storms, these big storms come up over the west portion of the Colorado Rockies. And the cows and the buffaloes look up and see the storm coming. Well, it's interesting because the cows see the storm and become scared. And they become scared and they run in the opposite direction. And now the storm comes over those mountains and almost chases the storm, chases the cow and pelts it and pelts it and pelts it and runs right with the cow. But the buffalo does a different thing. The buffalo spots the storm coming and feels exactly the same way as the cow does, scared. But the buffalo doesn't become afraid. It takes its scared feeling and it takes it and runs into the storm. And when it runs into the storm, it gets pelted immediately and then runs through it. All of us get scared. That's normal. But heroes like you, they march forward with their fear. They head towards their obstacles. They move towards their challenges. They're called, you're called heroes. That's what heroes do. They're faced with obstacles and they take their fear with them and they just move in, lean in, and they run towards those storms. I know you do it every day. I know you've done it in the past. And I know that the greatest things that you will have done in your life, I know this when it's over, will become the hardest things you faced in your life. It was October 30th, 1989. And I was in my ninth grade classroom delivering a message to all my young freshmen about dealing with drugs and alcohol. And I had placed on the chalkboard something that I thought they could take with them. And it was the definition of character. And I simply wrote character is the ability to persist against constant opposition. In other words, make your mind up on what you want to do. And then regardless of how difficult it is, regardless of how tough it gets, to keep your decision, stay with it. It's called character. It's called taking the right way instead of the easy way. It's choosing courage over comfort. And you can do that, everyone in this classroom. I know you can. Make your mind up and then stay strong. And as I said it as loud as I could. And I think the universe may have heard me because my principal, Paul Falcomer, knocked on the door with a terrible look in his face and beckoned me to come outside. I ran outside and Paul said, "Jim, come quick. Jake and Allie and Jody have been in a car accident." And we raced down the hallway and raced to Paul's car. And a mile from the school, there I saw a scene that looked something like this. My 4-year-old son, Jake, was being carried out on a stretcher with his eyes closed. And my 2-year-old daughter, Allie, was being held on the side of the car, shaking. My wife, Jody, was in the front seat in tremendous agony, with her eyes darting left and right in total shock. And that day would change my life forever. Jake was brought to the hospital, brought to intensive care, and placed into a coma. Jake would spend 20 days in a coma and have a 5% chance of living. And if he lived, no one knew what would happen. Allie was brought to the hospital and 28 hours later developed paralysis from the chest down, from spinal stroke, and then developed pneumonia. And she and Jake would be brought to the intensive care unit at St. Joseph's Hospital in Patterson. Jody broke her foot, but was in shock. And she and I would go over to that hospital and walk in, and our lives would change forever. You've been through not this specific situation, but you've been through life-changing events. You've been asked during this life to become bigger than maybe you thought you could become. The universe, God, whatever you believe in, looked down and offered you a different assignment than you thought you were going to have. Joseph Campbell said, we must release the life that we've planned and open up to the life we've been offered. That life's not happening to you, it's happening for you. And this was the beginning of a challenge that I never believed I could possibly endure. Jake came out of the coma. Allie came out paralyzed from the chest down. Jake sustained a head injury that left him with a 75 IQ. His helmet is off here, but he wore a helmet for 2 years. His left arm would never work again, and he walked with a limited gait. Allie was in a wheelchair that was the size of a doll's chair, and every day would stand in standing braces so she wouldn't develop early onset osteoporosis. She was told that her voice volume would be very low and she'd have respiratory problems. Jake would be bused to a special school. Because of his 75 IQ, he would never be able to make it in a public school, and his life future would be a very challenging, dark future. That's what we were told. That's what we were told. But you and I have been told things like this before. I was an athlete, and when I was ever told by a coach, you can't do it, something happened. Something happened. And it was all built on 3 things. It was built on gratitude. It was built on optimism. It was built on love and support from other people. It was built on grit. It was built on a mindset of taking your situation, whatever it is, and flipping it upside down, to turn an obstacle into an opportunity, to look at these kids and say, possibly their disabilities can become a great advantage, that our life is going to be better because we're going through a problem that becomes a possibility. The first thing that had to be done was frustration had to leave and fascination had to come on. And we had to get a team around us filled with positive people who believed, who had faith that these 2 kids could develop into miracles. Well, ironically, 2 months later, they were flown cross country and chosen as the Children's Miracle Children. And that became the beginning of a story. It was a long, tough story. And I can be honest to say, many nights I cried, many mornings I shook. But all the time, I kept those 3 qualities: gratitude, optimism. Stay in the present, Jim. Don't worry about the future. Look at the situation. Stop worrying what you don't have and worry about what you do have. Jake has a right arm that works. Allie has a mouth that can smile. Allie can paint. Maybe she can talk and become an actress. Jake can become maybe the greatest one-armed golfer ever. Well, kind of went through this process. This is a statue of Michelangelo back in 1501. Of David, done by Michelangelo. Back in 1501, Michelangelo was summoned to take an 18-foot slab of marble and create the greatest sculpture ever made of their hero, David. David was a symbol of someone who looked at the giant, looked at that obstacle, and he saw it with a different perspective. He looked at when all of the other people shook their head and said, no way, I'll take Goliath on. David walked forward with his sling and his 5 pebbles in his pouch and said, I'll take on the giant. And you know the story. The giant's size became a great opportunity for the slinger called David. When they asked Michelangelo, how did you do it? It took you 3 years. He said it was very, very simple. Every single day, I would just chip away all the little pieces of this marble that weren't the true David, all the pieces that no longer serve me, all the pieces that want the strength and courage of this statue. I did it one by one chip at a time, until I created this statue. This is my son, Jake. Jake graduated from Fairleigh Dickinson with honors. Jake went through Ridgewood High School, played basketball for me, and he played with one arm and didn't play a lot. But every time we were down 15 points, I put Jake in for one play. And he'd run down the court or hobble down with his gait. And people would look at Jake, and our teammates would look at Jake and realize it's all about courage. It's all about effort. It's all about determination. Jake was awarded the Employee of the Year at Whole Foods last year. This is his first son, JP, and his second son, LD, was born 3 months ago. The second slide I show you is that little girl at age 2 who was thought to never really become more than just someone that would walk down the street in her braces. In June of this past year, Allie was given the Tony Award for Best Supporting Actress. Allie was the first wheelchair-bound actor or actress in the history of Broadway. When Allie rolled out onto the stage, she said the following: "This award is not for me. This award is for every child watching tonight with a disability, a limitation, or a challenge that's been waiting to see themselves represented in this arena. You are tonight." When one person walks out or rolls out in front of a stage, they tell all of us that we can do it. But we are all Jake and Allie Stroker, every one of us. All of us are leaders. All of us are models. All of us are watched by others. Maya Angelou said something very amazingly articulate, and I repeat it all the time. Maya Angelou said, "I've realized at the end of my life, no one will ever remember what I've done. No one will ever remember what I've said, but people will remember forever how you and I have made them feel." That's our job. It has nothing to do what you've gotten in your life, only what you're given. You are here on this earth to give your gift away, to be in service of others, to spend your life at this point in your life in a returns fashion. They say life is broken down into 3 areas. The first part of your life is to learn. The second part of your life is to earn. The last part of your life is to return. Deep inside of you, in your unconscious mind, according to Carl Jung, according to Joseph Campbell, there is a hero back there. The hero of your own life is waiting, and it shines the brightest. It emerges out of the darkness during the most difficult times. COVID virus is a situation where you can shine. The wisest man in the world walked around the village. He was a soothsayer. He was a wizard. He was a fortune teller. He had the ability to look at people in the eyes and tell them where they were going, where they had been, and who they truly were. And all the villagers would run when this wise man would walk to their village. And these 2 young boys saw the wise man walking around. He saw his popularity. He saw that he had all this power, and they were jealous of him. They were resentful. So they decided to create a scheme where they could defraud him. They could make him look like a phony or a fraud. So one of the young boys decided to take a butterfly in his hands, put the butterfly in his hands. And then the next day, when there were hundreds of people around, they'd run in. They'd run to the middle of the crowd, tell them to stop. And then they'd ask the simple wise man one question. They would say, "Wise man, if you're so powerful, if you're so spiritual and so mystic, simply tell me, is the butterfly in my hands dead or alive? And if the wise man said dead, they would simply open their hands, the butterfly would fly away. If the wise man said alive, they'd squeeze their hands and then open up to a dead butterfly. Well, the next day, hundreds of people rallied around the wise man, and suddenly these two boys, these hooligans, ran up and said, "Stop, stop! He's a phony, he's a fraud." And everyone stopped. And they said, "Wise man, if you are so omnipowerful, is the butterfly I have in my hands dead or alive?" The wise man looked at him and said, "Son, the choice is in your hands. The choice is up to you." The choice to our response to the COVID virus, to challenges, the bleeding challenges you face, is in your hands. It's up to you. It's not easy to be good in rugged and hostile environments. It's not easy to be your best when you feel like it your least. But you're here on this planet for one reason, and that's to make this earth a better place because you walked it, to bring your strength, your gift, your hope, your optimism, your gratitude to the people around you that you love, to not do it when you feel like it, but to do it all the time, even when it's tough. You see, those cows get scared and they run, but those buffaloes get scared and they run into their challenge. Take your gift, take this challenge, find the silver lining, and at the end of the COVID virus, and this too will pass, walk out and say, "I'm glad I did," instead of "I wish that I had." Thank you guys so much. I think that's about as much
Thank
as an old man can speak.
Well, Jim, that was terrific. Every time I hear you speak, I just think, well, I've heard this story before, and yet I get so much out of it. And I think I can speak for many of us on the line and say, while we might not have been able to see you, we could certainly see and feel the passion in your voice. So, I'm always left from your presentations thinking, how is it that I can hear more of what Jim has to say? Because I just think it's so impactful. So thank you for that. We do have a few questions that came in, so I do want to share those. Jim, since we have just the final slide up, if you'd like to turn on your webcam, it looks like you just did that, which is great. Oh, terrific. You beat me to the punch. So hopefully we can have that for the Q&A period. So I want to share a couple of the things that came in. Somebody asked the question of, first, those 3 challenge questions to ask ourselves each day are great. How can we approach doing these tasks if we haven't already started? For example, realizing what we are grateful for, figuring out what we have in life, etc. What would be your advice for someone who's looking to kind of start off on that, doing that?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's never too late to start. I mean, you could develop these gratitude and optimism muscles right now. And all you do is simply that, and you could do the gratitude part in the beginning of the day, the optimism part at the end. Just simply, and here's the key, write down 3 things you're grateful for. Try, if you can, each day to change them. And then at the end of that, don't forget this piece. How do they make you feel? Immerse or stitch the emotional side of it. So I'm so grateful today to have connected with you. And it makes me feel so alive and feel so loved. So do 3 of those each day. So it's amazing because, it's incredible because, you're going to have, you're going to have 90 of these at the end of a month. And then Sarah, the other piece is at the end of the day, what went well today and why? What went well today and why? I would put that in. What went well, this webcam, why? Because of Sarah and Rich's great preparation. It made me feel really comfortable.
Mm.
So those
That's great.
two are, they're all research based too. This isn't just blah, blah, blah. It works.
Awesome. Thank you, Jim. It's interesting hearing you share this tip. These are, expressing gratitude and thinking about it at the start, at the end of the day, are always something that I hear in presentations and motivational conversations. And yet it's something that I struggle to actually kind of get started with doing. And I think in light of everything we're experiencing right now, this is such a good reminder of the fact that, like, you just have to start, you just have to be reminded of the fact that, you are in control of your own destiny, and what's going to motivate us to do it is you, and making that commitment to making this a ritual. So I appreciate that, you
Right.
sharing
Like when
that.
everything's good, Sarah, we get lazy.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden the tough
Yep.
parts hit.
Yep.
And if we've been practicing gratitude and optimism,
Mm-hmm.
you're good. You're going to be okay.
Absolutely. That's great. I've got a couple more questions, and I'm mindful that we're over on time, but I would love for
Yep.
folks who are able to stay on, Jim, just to ask a few more of these. Someone asked the question of, do you think that people who have faith, spiritual or religious, do better than those who do not?
I think faith is an unbelievable power source. I've seen it with a lot of your community. The strongest people that I've met have some inside faith that there's something bigger than themselves, that there's some connection, there's something bigger than themselves is going on. So there's a lot of different, styles of faith, but I really believe having that belief that there's something else going on can be really a power source. I really believe it. Yeah, I think faith is crucial to use in these times.
Thank you for sharing that. Another person comments, amazing speaker, Jim. My family and I have very much enjoyed listening to you. I wanted to share that kudos. This person also asked the question, did you always have this mindset throughout your life, or did it develop after the accident?
Well, I was very, and I don't say this tongue in cheek. I was very fortunate. I went through an early terrible event. It seemed like it at the time. So I got to practice. When I was 9 years old, my 48-year-old dad died of a massive heart attack from nowhere. And my 44-year-old mom was the one who modeled all of this. So I got to see, a wife who was scared out of her mind and moved forward. A mom who focused in on what we did have and not what we didn't, and who flipped the situation we had gone through upside down and made a childhood for my brother and myself unbelievable. So I got a chance to model that and see it. And really, that's what happens, doesn't it? When people do that for others, it lasts forever. So she did that for me.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, Jim. We've got one more question that came in, and it says, how long did it take for you to get to a place of gratitude?
That's a great question, because when you go through grieving, and I think these accidents, I think there's a shock factor. I think COVID-19, there was a shock factor, and it still might be. I think when people die, there's a shock factor. I think when there's accidents, when there's traumatic events, you're in shock, and you're forced to go through the stages. So I'm not telling you, but I'm going to tell you this, both my children almost died, like an inch. So it was praying of just please God. And when their lives were spared, there was a gratitude. It was there, you know. I mean, it's not what I had hoped. It's not what I had planned. This is going to be really tough. But uh, so I, I can't. I just think gratitude is, maybe if you had to teach your kids one thing, like one gift that they could carry through their life, is to be grateful for what they have, not what they don't. And if they can do that forever, then life is always enough, isn't it? It's always enough. I mean, it's not enough if we want more. It's not enough if we think that more would make her happy. Listen, the happiest people that I've ever met are in a way have the simplest lives. They really do. They're just grateful for what they have. So it took some time though. I'm not I'm far from perfect, and I went through that grieving period, but eventually it kicked in to be grateful for exactly what I have and focus in on the fact that Allie can sing, even though she can't dance, or though she did, jump, run. To what can you have? What do you have? So great.
That's great. Thank you so much, Jim. Just it looks like your computer froze, so I'm just gonna turn off your webcam. You don't need to do anything. I'll just do that on myself. But I just wanted to share another comment from someone that says, "Thank you, Jim. Good to see you again." So it looks like some folks who saw you as a facilitator previously are joining us tonight. So Jim, one final point I would love for you to share with people. If people are interested in seeing some of your other clips and things you've done, can they find you on Facebook, or is there another place for
Yeah,
people to see your work?
yeah. I'd love you. First of all, if you're on Facebook, friend me. Off of tonight, I'll look for it tomorrow. And then I have a load of videos under Coach Stroker. Coach Stroker. We have a JS coaching team. We do life coaching. And I'm still now doing more virtual speaking than ever. If you're a Zoom person or webcams and you have a group that you think I could help or in any way give hope or inspiration to, use me. I'm placed on this earth to give help, hope, and inspiration. The more I do it, the more I love it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jim. And I just wanted to share with everyone, I included the link to Allie's story from when she won the Tony Award last year. It's in the chat feature. So just want to make sure that people have a chance to watch that afterward, because just as Jim shared with a few quotes from her speech, it's a really powerful story to watch. And I know Allie has actually spoken to the bleeding disorders community previously, and we're hoping that she might be able to join us for a future webinar. So I just want to share once again, Jim, on behalf of all of us at NEHA, thank you so much for your willingness to share your story with us tonight. You mentioned that quote from Maya Angelou about the way that you are left feeling from what someone says. And I have to say, the feeling that I have just in hearing you speak tonight is one that I know will carry with me throughout the coming months as we kind of face uncharted territory. So thank you so much for that, and for your willingness to offer such important guidance to people who are facing different things. But I think all of us are certainly facing a time of ever-changing and unknown feelings, and knowing what you have to say makes all the difference. So I want to just close by saying a few things. Thanks again for everyone attending tonight. The recording of this will soon be added to NEHA's YouTube channel, so you'll have a chance to watch afterward. We'll also post it on NEHA's social media pages. We have many more events that are coming up. As I mentioned previously, we've been doing this webinar Wednesday series regularly. And so to see a full listing, you can go to NEHA's website nehemophilia.org. We've also been doing coffee chats through Zoom, which is a chance for people to see one another face to face. Since we're not able to gather physically, it gives us a chance to see each other virtually. Next week's webinar is all about advocacy. Join us to hear from Representative Joe McKenna about the work he and other state legislators are doing to support constituents during this time, as well as policy updates from throughout the New England region. We'll also talk about how you can take action with your legislators from your home. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us tonight. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Stay healthy. NEHA and the New England community is here for you, as I know Jim is as well. So again, many thanks, Jim, and we'll look forward to having many of you
Thank you, Sarah.
participate in this in the future.